All right, Matt Weaver with Sportsnaut checking in after the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. Could be the last Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. A lot of talk that we're about to go back to the Super Oval next year, the return of the Brickyard 400. But tonight is about the oval race, and a race won by Michael McDowell and Front Row. Kind of an upset, even though they would argue that it's no longer that kind of storyline. So listen, there was a time where this team, owned by Bob Jenkins and managed by Jerry Freeze, they were the ultimate underdog. Hell, they weren't good enough to be an underdog. They were also-rans. They were a start and park kind of organization, right? And their first handful of wins over the years were kind of fluky in nature, right? They won a fuel mileage race with Chris Buescher at Pocono, rain shortened and fuel mileage. They won with David Reagan at Talladega, under moonlight virtually, right? And that was their second win. Their third win 2 years ago, the Daytona 500. That was it's super speedway racing, so obviously it's got kind of a different level of reputation to it, I guess, right? Historically, this team was not of this caliber to go out and do what they did today, which was dominate a race. They did not back into a win. They flat out beat the field straight up. And I think it was extra satisfying for them to do it head to head with Chase Elliott, and we're going to get into him in a second. One of the best road course racers in the discipline, one of the best historic teams at road course racing, and they just flat wax the field, right? So to me, this is kind of a coming out party for the new Front Row Motorsports. These are now championship contending teams. I don't think they're quite a championship winning team yet, and I talked to Michael about that, and he agrees with that sentiment. Hold on, we got the pagoda in the background. Pagoda. There's no trip to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that cannot include the pagoda, right? So, listen, I think that Michael McDowell winning this race and emerging as a true threat to win races legitimately, dominantly, that's one of the key takeaways of today. Now, on the other hand, it came at the expense of Chase Elliott, and oh boy, it's becoming increasingly likely that NASCAR's most popular driver is not going to make the field of 16, make the playoffs. And they've got one more super legitimate chance to do it next week at Watkins Glen, another road course. It stands to reason that they should be just as good at the Glen as they were here. I mean, they're not similar racetracks, but they're both road courses, right? They have some nuances that are similar, and so that's it. Because to me, they do not want to go into Daytona having to win their way in. We saw it last year with Austin Dillon. He has a teammate that was able to help him. I have a bug flying on the screen here. Moths. I just think it's so unlikely that Chase Elliott is going to go into Daytona and win that race, because he can't even get help from all of his teammates realistically. Like, Hendrick Motorsports cannot sell out for the 9 team because the 48 also needs to win their way in, right? So, like, their allegiances are going to be kind of split. Now, granted, a big wreck could kind of take them out, but the big wreck could also take the 9 out. So to me, history could show this race as, you know, the big missed opportunity for Chase Elliott to win his way and make the playoffs, right? We'll see. The other big story is the international flair, right? Like, after winning the streets of Chicago, Shane Van Gisbergen comes back to the NASCAR Cup Series and has a top 10. Not quite as competitive. They had a stuck throttle early in the race, and you know, Shane kind of said after the race that you know, the throttle was still kind of sticky, and it just made his, you know, his throttle on, his throttle off just a little bit more tricky. So still, I think another top 10 and 2 starts is more than really a true rookie could possibly ask for. Jenson Button, Kamui Kobayashi both had some run-ins with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I made the joke on Twitter that, you know, when Ricky won Daytona back in 2017, he was like, "America, 1776, we are the champs." And so I made the joke that Ricky defended America's honor against Kamui Kobayashi and Jenson Button. It was a joke. Like, I don't really mean that. And by the way, the other kind of international superstar from another discipline is actually Mike Rockenfeller, who kind of played a factor in the finish because he was fighting for the lucky dog with Ricky Stenhouse. Chase Elliott was trying to get around him. Candidly, I think that Michael McDowell had an easier go getting around those lap cars, including Mike Rockenfeller, than Chase did. And so Chase got behind that 42 and he was stuck for a couple of laps, right? Like, he could not easily get around the 42, and they had a conversation about it, right? Like, Chase went to go find Mike, making his Cup Series debut, replacing the suspended and dismissed Noah Gragson. I asked Chase after the race, you know, what kind of conversation was it? And he says, "It's fine." I'll tell you what, guys, Chase Elliott is so over this conversation and narrative of will he or won't he make the playoffs. It's so remarkable. I was at a late model race in Michigan on Wednesday with Chase, and it was a completely different Chase Elliott than the one we've seen the last couple of weeks here in the Cup Series. I'm not saying that the pressure is getting to him. I don't think the pressure is getting to Chase Elliott. I just think that he's just tired of having the same conversation. Oh, well, you have to win. You know, this latest setback, how do you feel about it? I think that when Chase was in a position to go run the late model on Tuesday and Wednesday, he got to just be a race car driver and just race and have fun racing. And so I say that to say, listen, if Chase misses the playoffs, it's going to be a huge blow to the sport. It's going to be a huge blow to that fan base. It's going to be super unfortunate for Chase, Alan Gustafson, Eddie DeHaan, everyone on the 9 team. I think it would be a huge relief to Chase just to be able to shut down that expectation and that narrative and just let him go race for the next 10 years, right? Or 10 years, that's like you're right. The next 10 weeks. And so that's the other big story. I opened this video by talking about potentially the last race on the road course. I talked to Indianapolis track president J. Doug Bowles. We love Doug Bowles in this household. I asked him, you know, is this the last race on the road course, or is the test the next 2 days going to kind of play a role in that? And which it does. Doug was super candid in saying that he would love personally, as the track president of the track that houses the Indianapolis 500, the greatest oval race in the world, 30th anniversary of the inaugural Brickyard 400, he would like to see the Cup Series return to the Super Oval. we'll see how the test goes Monday, Tuesday, right? I think it's pretty likely, more likely than not. I think the test, this car, it'll prove to be more interesting than the previous generation of car. And the one guy who most certainly does not want to see that outcome would be Michael McDowell, because he's such a a great road course racer, and he even said it. He's like, don't do it. But he understands the prestige and the history of the Brickyard and why they're going to go back. One last thing I got for you before we wrap it up here from the racing capital of the world. The playoff drama is done. Like, barring another surprise winner, if Chase Elliott can win next week on a road course, Daytona obviously is going to be drama, but nobody can expect to win needing to at Daytona, right? Like, this win eliminates some of the drama from a point standpoint the next 2 weeks. Daniel Suarez has a pretty huge gap to make up on Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace has now dropped to the cut line. Michael McDowell's in for sure. I think it's 44 points from Bubba Wallace to Daniel Suarez. Ty Gibbs is right below him. A.J. Allmendinger below him. Forget it. We're not doing the points thing. That's not happening. It would take a catastrophic failure for Bubba Wallace to miss this playoff. Like, I really believe that, right? So, wondering all these wristbands. I went to like 12 races the last 14 days. It's going to take a catastrophic failure for Bubba Wallace to miss the playoffs, or, and this is the big or, a new winner. Chase Elliott winning on a road course. Any number of contenders. Austin Dillon going back-to-back at Daytona for the regular season finale. A.J. Allmendinger could theoretically win on a road course as well, right? So Daytona is going to be the great drama. It's going to be the race that kind of everyone will put their last hopes on. Ryan Preece, Chase Briscoe, all these teams that have kind of been candidly also rans, right? Like Justin Haley, former summer race winner at Daytona. That's going to be the only true drama remaining of the regular season. So I think we're locked in now. We are hurtling towards playoff time, and we'll have lots of time to talk about that. Looking forward to the Southern 500, which will kick off the playoffs. Can't wait to see who the final 16 is, and we know who one of them is going to be. Well, his graphics behind me now, but it's going to be Michael McDowell and Front Row Motorsports winning again and not backing their way in, dominating a race on their way to the playoffs, and they're going to be legitimate contenders to at least make the second round, and that's going to be a fun storyline to follow. So for Sportsnaut, I am Motorsports Insider Matt Weaver, and we'll talk to you guys next weekend after Watkins Glen. I'm not going to the Glen personally. I will be at Daytona for the regular season finale. I'll probably shoot something from my office next week if you guys want, and we'll talk to you then. Later.